What's up, everyone? It's a Lifestyle here, and today I'm going to be doing my first impressions on one of my newest knife. This is the American Blade Works Model 1 V6. So if you're unfamiliar with the concept behind this knife, this is the Model 1, and the maker and owner of the company, Michael Martin, he will just kind of improve the knife one version at a time. So this is the 6th version of this knife, and with Model 5, I remember watching some YouTube videos on it, and it seemed like it was almost perfect. And so Model 6, he's just upped it a little bit more, and this knife is really getting close to perfection. I do have a little bit of nitpicks that I would do. Some of them are just kind of my style, kind of if changing it up to my personal needs, but let's go ahead and talk about it. Once again, this is just my first impression, so maybe my thoughts will change by my review in 2 or 3 weeks. So let's start with some size comparisons for this knife. First, one size comparison that I think is really good is against the Microtech LUDT. These are very similar and both made in America, both not really around the same price range, but they're close. This American Blade Works is about $185. That's what I got it for. The LUDT is kind of about $250. I will be doing a battle of the blades comparing these two knives, which I'm really excited for. I just feel like they are kind of random. You don't really think of both of them in the same category, but they are a lot more similar than you will think. Now let's throw a PM2 in there to see how it compares against that. Very similar in overall size to the PM2, but it has more, does it have more cutting edge? Let's just kind of eyeball it here. They're actually pretty close. That wasn't on camera, sorry. They are pretty close in the actual cutting edge length. I guess the PM2 might be a little bit longer overall, but yeah, let me throw up the two Sabenzas. Small Sabenza on top, and then the large Sabenza on the bottom. So it's kind of somewhere in between these two. Let's talk about the anatomy of this knife, what it is built up of. It has a 20 CV blade, which he just switched to 20 CV, or he switched from S35VN to 20 CV with the stonewash finish in the drop point blade shape. It's got black micarta handle scales. It is a liner lock. It is a flipper deployment. It's got a two-way reversible titanium milled pocket clip in the tip up position. It is a liner lock. I might have already said that, I don't know, but it's made in America by Michael Martin. He runs his own thing, pretty much just him on CNC machines. A lot of people would consider this a mid-tech. I don't really get caught up in all that terminology, but you know, some custom makers, they will just kind of produce their custom knives where they CNC machine the whole thing, where there's still some hand work in there, and they classify those as mid-techs, and usually those are like 400, 500, and up from there. And so at $185, this is a really good price for the amount of work and just a small business made in America, all of that effort putting into this knife. So that is why this knife really caught my attention and why I bought it. Now let's look at the looks of this knife, what I think about it. And I really think that this knife looks great. This is a very coarse stonewash finish on here. It doesn't feel like there's a blast to it, but it very well could have a bead blast and then a stonewash, but it's smooth to the touch, which I like. A bead blast finish is just kind of rough. You know, sometimes moisture can get trapped within the kind of blasted area and kind of create rust more. He is using stainless steel, so I don't think you'll run into many issues, but I am glad that it is a stonewash finish now. I also think it looks really good. The handles on here are the black micarta. I think that the black micarta looks really good. Black micarta is my go-to micarta, I guess I would say, on my Sabenza here. This is also black micarta, so these match pretty well. The micarta feels good, and overall, I really like it. Yeah, I guess I don't really have much else to say about the looks of this knife. I am a fan of it, and I think it looks good. I like this pivot as the logo. That's really the only logoing on this. There is 20 CV, and one thing I like is it's kind of just stamped into that blade. It's not like a laser etch, and so I just think that that's a little nice touch, and it's not just like a black etch on this gray blade kind of throwing off the color. Not a big deal, but I just like the little touch of that. Kind of reminds me of Chris Reeve knives. You know, no real markings on the blades on these, but it's just that little Chris Reeve logo right there and nothing on the blade. I'm a fan of that. Now let's move on to the actual blade of this, how it has performed. You know, I haven't used it much, but I have sharpened it, so I do kind of know what it's like. And the 20CV, honestly, I thought after my sharpening, I would be able to know, okay, is this a good steel? Is it not? Or is it done well? Is it not? Because that's a thing with 20CV, M390, and 204P. A lot of people really like these steels, and a lot of people consider it their favorite steel or the best all-around EDC steel. I do think it's good when it's done at a good heat treat. A lot of companies run this soft, especially Chinese companies. So I wanted to see how he ran his. It was one of those things where I couldn't tell. I know that it wasn't a terrible heat treat. It was it felt much better than my Hogue Deca in 20CV when sharpening that, and I'm almost positive that's a soft heat treatment on there. And so that is positive on it, but that is a plus to this knife, but I'm just not for sure if it's really good. Maybe I'll send this out for some testing. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'll try and get some more use on it, maybe another sharpening or two, and see just if I can affirm what I'm thinking about it. I guess my thoughts on this 20CV is it just feels middle of the road. Looking at the thickness behind the edge, we'll round that up to 13 thousandths towards the base. Towards the middle, we're looking 13 thousandths, and then it thickens up at the tip. Sorry about that dog barking in the back. Thickens up to about 22 thousandths right there. So I wish it didn't thicken up at the tip, but it's not that big of a deal. A whole lot of knives do it. Some people like that because you have more strength, just more steel out towards the tip. My thoughts is I probably won't be prying with this knife, so I'm not gonna worry about that very much. But I mean, 13 thousandths behind the edge, that is awesome. I'm a really big fan of that, and I'm just glad to see another knife company grinding their knives thinner. You know, lots of knife companies, they will leave their knives at 20 thousandths, 25 thousandths. One, because it's less material to remove, less wear on the belts that they're grinding these on, and you have less of an issue with blades chipping, maybe breaking from a warranty standpoint. And honestly, if I was a production company like Spyderco, I might keep it at 20 thousandths. Knowing me, I'd like to push it thinner, but you know, people that do dumb stuff with their knives and don't just use them for regular EDC stuff, you might want to, or if I was a company, I might leave it thicker to target those people. But I really like to see this knife being thin behind the edge. I'm really happy with it. I'm glad that it's not another knife that's 20 thousandths behind the edge. And so really good job to Michael Martin on making this. And one little thing that I forgot to mention, if you've seen my other videos recently, you know this, but I picked this up at Blade Show. So I got this for $185, no shipping, of course, no tax at all. And I got to meet Michael Martin, which was really cool. I was happy to meet him, and he kind of talked through the changes he made on this, and it was really cool to see his thought process, and he was a really nice guy. So yeah, overall on the blade, I really like it. I like that it's thin behind the edge. 20 CV, not gonna really say if it's good or if it's bad right now. I guess I'll just wait for a full review, or maybe even more for like an EDC update after that. It's just a simple drop point blade, which I am a fan of. One thing to point out, this is a good choil, very nicely done, simple sharpening choil. I'm glad it's there. So many companies just don't do that. And I did bump it a little bit on my stone, as you can see. So after maybe more sharpenings, you will see a smile there. But one thing I like about this choil already pre-cut, by the time I get to the point where I need to add another choil, I'll probably have used it enough that I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely not selling this. Don't need to try and preserve resale value or anything. I already like this knife, so I don't think I'm gonna do that anyway, but I'll be happy to cut in another choil, and I won't have to grind off much steel just because that's already cut in there, and I'm just gonna be extending that a little bit down the knife. So that's about all I got for the blade. Overall positive. Let's move on to the fit and finish and lockup. So for the fit and finish, it is pretty good. Centering is a little bit off to the left, and I think that the grind might be slightly off center, because if you look at the knife, like the blade and the handle from this point up, you see that it looks pretty centered. And also with my sharpening, you see at the tip here, my bevel looks a little bit wider on this side than this side. I am really nitpicking here, but that's just something I notice as a sharpener. I get, or as the more advanced I get in sharpening, the more picky I get. So I think that that grind might be a little bit thicker on this lock side of the knife than on the show side, and I think that shows up in that centering being slightly off towards the end there, while it's also centered in this part of the blade is centered there. So a lot of companies do that, but I wish that grind was on centered. I guess that's just a little bit of a nitpick from me. One issue that I have found with the fit and finish on this is the lockup. So the side-to-side play, there's none, but I can feel a little bit of up and down. I don't even know if it's gonna, like if you're gonna be able to hear it, but there is just a little bit of up and down on this, and I've done some light spine wax. I don't think this is going anywhere, but I'm not sure why that is the case. Looking at the lock face geometry right here, let me try and get a flashlight and shine it on this. Probably not going to be the best, but it just looks a little bit sloppy. I don't know why that is the case, but it just doesn't, as you can see, there's not much engagement on there, that little dark spot. That's where the lock bar is hitting it. I'm just looking at it off camera to see if I'm looking at the right thing. Yeah, that dark spot there, that's where the lock bar is coming in contact with the tang. It's not as uniform as something you'd see on this Sebenza here. You see that straight line going across that tang. I'm not trying to compare a $400 knife to a almost $200 knife, but yeah, I believe that's why there is some lock rock to it, just because that's not as uniform. There's only a little bit of that lock bar coming in contact with that tang, and this is a steel liner lock. And if you're wondering why it's bronzed, as you can see here, I actually asked him at the show, and he said that he heat treats the stainless steel, and so that's why it gets that little bronze look. So I wish that there wasn't that up and down play. It might work out over time. I guess I could do the thing where I take it apart and bend that lock bar a little bit. Haven't really thought about it. Don't know if I'll do it right now, just because honestly, if it's not failing with spine wax, there's really no need, unless you're just kind of, unless it just bothers you that it's there. But yeah, I'd suggest maybe if he's watching this video, look into that and see. Maybe it's something with the heat treated stainless steel. Maybe it's something with the lock face, the geometry of it. I'm not sure, but yeah, there is a little bit of up and down play to it. Now let's move on to the ergonomics of this knife. So the ergonomics are great. I mean, there really are no downsides with the ergonomics on this. One thing I just want to highlight is how well this micarta is finished and chamfered and knocked down in pretty much every possible way. If you look at it right here, there is no sharp corners at all. It is knocked down. You can see that bevel in there. It's knocked down on the inside. Some companies, I know Spyderco is kind of guilty of this with their FRN knives. They'll have chamfers on the outside here, but it won't be knocked down on the inside. So when you put your hand in, the little extra fat on your fingers gets kind of pinched with that sharp part of the inside of the scales. So I really like to see that that is knocked down. Also, there is a slight contour? Yeah, slight contour to this scale, which I really like. You know, contouring always makes things better. It fills up your hand a little bit more and just feels more like you're holding on to, it just feels more comfortable. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. There is this kind of forward finger choil here, which I like. If you have really thick fingers, you might not be able to use this. Some people might not feel that safe using this just because you are close to that blade. But my thought is, if you're using this for something like a hard to use task, or where there's going to be resistance that you're pushing against, that is going to be trying to push this blade up. So you're not going to be that much in danger when doing this. It's something that I think a lot of people are scared of and just don't try. For example, on this large Sebenza, there is no finger choil here, but I have done a whole lot of cutting like this with my finger just right there in the choil, and because that knife blade is being pushed back, I don't run into any issues with it cutting me. Like if it's not touching your skin right now, you're probably not going to run into any issues. So that I am fine with that. This is just one downside for flippers for me. This is why I prefer thumb studs or thumb holes. They just kind of get in the way. Imagine if that flipper wasn't there, you could put this finger right here, and that would be nice. Maybe that's something in the future, a thumb stud model of this. I know I really like thumb studs. There would have to be adjustments made, like more of a cutout for access to the thumb stud. The detent would need to be lightened up. But overall, ergonomics, very good. I would probably hold it like this for most stuff. It feels great in there. I don't feel the clip at all. Sometimes if I'm really far back, I can feel that right there, but it's never like I wouldn't say it's hot spot material. I'm just like, okay, that's where the back of the clip is, and then I move up to a more comfortable position. But overall, I mean, he knocked it out of the park with the ergos on this. Some of the best on any knife that I own. Now let's move on to the carry, and I was actually very impressed with how this knife carried. So I think the pocket clip has kind of been the downfall of this knife. Just, I mean, I've been following this through the versions just because it interests me. This knife checks a lot of boxes that I'm looking for, and I think the pocket clip has been kind of the main challenge to try and solve. You know, I remember seeing one of them where the pocket clip didn't touch the actual handle scale, which isn't that big of a deal, but you know, if the tension is right, it should be able to touch it. Some of them, the pocket clip has just an overly tight tension, but this one, it has a good tension like you see here, and it slides in and out of the pocket very nicely. I don't have pants with me. I mean, I am wearing pants, but I'll just put this on a rag here, and yeah, it slides in and out of the pocket very nicely. No issues with that, and I was impressed. This is actually the very first titanium milled clip that I have. It's kind of weird. I just, you know, usually get spring clips like this. I guess that's what the knives I'm interested in, what they use. And I am impressed with this. I think that they are very good for ergonomics, but sometimes you run into issues. It seems like on, you know, if you watch reviews on like Tucson's or maybe Riots, sometimes it seems like they're milled clips. Sometimes they're really good, but sometimes, I keep saying sometimes they just are super tight and hard to get in and out of the pocket. Let me get a weight on this. I want to see how much it weighs. It doesn't feel that heavy. It's got nested liners in there, so it's not just micarta. We're looking right under 4 ounces for that weight, so I'm really happy with that. If you don't know what these nested liners are, let me kind of show this for you. I'll get this flashlight back out. But this micarta, he basically took the main piece of micarta and milled out the shape of the handle scale in there with the CNC, and then there's a nested liner in there, so it's not looking like sorry for the lack of, okay, yeah, here it is. This is what non-nested liners look like, kind of on this Mannix where you can see them, they're exposed. So what this is on the Model 6, it's just kind of nested in there where you can only see the micarta, which I'm happy with, provides nice strength to it, and you don't run, and it probably lightens it up a little bit and makes it thinner in the pocket. Now let's talk about the action of this knife. And the action, keep in mind, I'm not very picky with action. A lot of people like to nitpick about the sounds and the detents and the drop shuttiness. I don't mind. I don't care about that. If it deploys reliably and closes easy, that's really all I care about, and it does both of those things. The detent is on the stronger side. It has broken in a little bit over the times that I've just been messing with it. I just open it like that. It fires out hard. It's really hard to miss. Sorry about that. We have a new puppy and it's squeaking a toy or something. And but I can flick it out really easy, no issues with that. It's on bearings, so you don't get that hydraulic sound that you get on like a Spidey Chef or a Sabenza or something along those lines. But honestly, it's reliable. It opens easy, closes easy. Not the most fun thing in the world. It's probably not going to be the fidgeter's best knife, or it's not going to be like a ProTech Malibu or something, but that doesn't bother me. Overall, good action. Now let's talk about the value. So you guys probably already know what I'm going to say for the value. $185 for a knife made in America by a small business, one man running the show, or I don't think one man making this knife. 20 CV blade steel, micarta handles, liner lock. It's just a ground thin, really nicely built knife. I'm a fan of it. One of the best prices out there. That price still shocks me how low it is. I think that he could easily charge, or I feel like I could 100% pay $250 for this knife and not think I'm getting ripped off or anything. So that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Be on the lookout for my review of this, and that's all I got for today. So I will see you guys in the next one.